Welcome back to the ZAO Strength Podcast. This is your host, Jim Elli, and today we're speaking with Australian powerlifter Liz Craven. Liz and I go quite far back. I've known her since 2016 when I met her at IPF Worlds in Killeen, Texas, and she has been working with, or had been working with Mike Tuchscherer for a few years, I think 4 or 5 years before she decided to make a transition and work with someone new. I was able to meet up with her in Australia. I hosted a seminar at one of the gyms that she frequents, City Strength Gym in Sydney, Australia. So it was really nice to catch up with her and talk about what life has been like since the pandemic started. It's a common theme in a lot of these podcasts is how lifters have evolved and adapted to the new conditions in which they're experiencing. The pandemic has shifted the material conditions for many lifters around the world, and learning about how they've managed within those new conditions is really interesting to me. We talk a lot about her businesses and how she wants to evolve from coaching. We've talked about how she shifted her mindset in training from kind of a do or die type of lifter to allowing a little bit more flexibility and ultimately tracking that response and seeing what happens. This conversation gets kicked off talking about her working with one of my lifters, Ro, who owns a company called Women in Strength, where she effectively teaches women how to set up plans, build businesses from the ground up. And we end the conversation in a completely different direction. So I'm excited for you to listen to this, to pay attention to it. Let me know what you think. If you enjoy this episode, feel free to share it with your friends on Instagram, social media, and consider subscribing to our podcast on Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you're listening to this. And we will see you in the next episode. So let's get right into it. I have too much hair. Usually it's pretty bad, but so yeah, you're starting kind of a mentorship with the Women in Strength. Is it women? What is it called? Women in Power? Women in Strength.
Women in Strength. How do you know that?
I work with Ro.
Oh, do you?
Yeah, she's my client for lifting.
Oh wow. Yeah, she's I figure she's in the same industry and she's female and she seems to know what she's talking about, so a lot more than I do. Because for me, my business has always been very organic. It's just I've been a coach for 15. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I've been a coach for about 15 years and I started like general population and then I was a CrossFit coach and then I became a powerlifter and now I'm known for powerlifting. And I own a strength gym and I kind of need to know how to grow that. You know, I've just been giving out hours for money for so long and I can't keep going with that. It's too much. I'm exhausted. Yeah. My lifting was suffering, you know. Did you find that?
Yeah, I mean, I have never done in-person training, but it still is kind of like hours for money and not even directly, right? Because one of the downsides it is an upside and a downside with like pure online coaching is that, you know, you're trying to be valuable. And so one way to be valuable is give more time.
Yeah.
Another way is to give higher quality time, you know, per whatever, if it's 30 minutes or an hour. And so, and that, you know, and then the other thing is like when you're recruiting or you're spending time on marketing, like a lot of my time goes into the marketing efforts, like what we were talking about before we recorded, like recording YouTube videos and planning for the next Instagram post and communicating with the people that are going to help you do that. So I'm not trading time for money as much as I'm investing a lot of time up front, which is good to do.
Yeah.
But sometimes, especially when it gets rough, it's like, oh, this is a lot of time that I'm putting in. And now I feel like people might have expectations, you know, of what's to come. And so that's kind of what I feel sometimes is that there's a lot of time in and it's hard to know if you're even going to make a difference or if the thing that you're trying to do is going to grow to the level that you want it to, you know?
I know that's the scary bit, but I guess like even when you start a training program, it's the same thing, isn't it? You don't know what's going to happen at the end. So I guess we just got to throw ourselves in and then see what happens. So hopefully I can, because I was working 6 days a week, and this is before lockdown. We've been in lockdown in Canberra for about 6 weeks now. And now that I have the time to stop and have a look around, I know that I shouldn't be doing that for my business, because now that I'm not working as much, my training is better. I'm happier. I'm not as stressed, And when you're a coach, you're giving out to people all the time. So it's hard to have energy for yourself. Do you find that?
I think especially as like you're a business owner too. So you're not just, if I'm wrong, but you're not just working with your clients, right? You're also like doing upkeep on the back end, or is it mostly just time in with the clients?
A lot of it's time in with the clients, but then you've got to do your money. You've got to do the actual cleaning of the gym, that kind of thing. Make sure there's enough, the equipment is how you need it. And your taxes set aside, all that kind of thing. And I hate that, but I need to make that more efficient too. I need better systems.
That's why I hired an accountant. Actually, I hired one while I was in Australia, maybe a few days before the seminar we had in Sydney. I remember, because I was like so pumped that if there's one thing that gives me anxiety with having a business is the taxes, especially because in the States, like I don't know how it is in Australia, but they like just don't tell you how much you owe. So you just have to like, it's like a game, you're like, let's see whose math is better. And at the end, if they're wrong, they're like, you're wrong. Here's your fine. And I'm like, come on. Like, what the hell? Like, why didn't you just tell me? Like, I'm ready,
At the start.
Yeah, like I don't know how it is there though.
Yeah. Well, we have a lot of different so once you earn over a certain amount, that's when you have to start paying GST. So then you have to declare for GST, pay that quarterly, and then hopefully not pay much tax on the rest, because you've used a lot of the money for your business, or you have ways out, I guess. Nothing dodgy though. ATO.
Yeah, right. No, I know what you mean. Well, one of the things that was interesting though is that the lockdown that you've been experiencing sounds like it's freed up some mental capacity to like think about what you want.
Yeah. It's actually been, so the last lockdown we had, it was 12 weeks. It made me realize I didn't want to go back to a big gym where I was sharing equipment with a lot of people. I wanted my own setup. So I found a place close to home, and I made a studio that was only open when I was working. So I don't have to worry about it when I'm not there. And that was good. And then I became very busy in a short period of time. And now I realize maybe I need to hire someone and free up more time for myself so I can work on my business and make it better lifestyle for me,
Yeah. One of the things that I found so interesting in the last 2 years, like, I mean, obviously I left reactive training systems for a similar reason. Like, I wanted to make something that it was more me, like more something that was organic and like built from the ground up from me, and just kind of, there's certain periods in my life where I want to challenge, and working with RTS is such a good thing for me to do, because I learned so much about like the depth of the powerlifting coaching industry. And I loved it. But then when the pandemic hit, it was like, I don't know, it felt like I was in a bubble and I wanted to like pop it, It's like I'm in here and I'm kind of enjoying it, but also like I want to pop it. I want to get out of there. I just want to do my own thing and see what happens. And that was kind of always on the back of my mind. But the only time that happened was when everything slowed down, and I realized that all I was doing was working, but it wasn't for my own, like, it was part of my like vision, but also I knew I wanted to do something a little bit more. And I do feel like the time away or the time where I wasn't traveling anymore, right? There's no more travel. So what is my life? And for me, that was like, all right, let's do your own thing. What does that look like? If you could take control over everything, what would that look like? What would it feel like? How would you want to impact, the community directly? And I feel like that's something that some people seem to have found that when, during this time. Other people, I think it's been a lot harder because they still maybe not know what to do, but now the world shut down. So they're like, what are my options?
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And back to that with the whole RTS thing. I was in the RTS bubble for a long time, and I love RTS. I love Mike, etc. But I just really felt like I wanted to go try something new, you know what I mean, and see what could happen. So I've been trying many different trainers, and it's nothing like, remember the heyday when I was all of a sudden breaking world records in my garage every week?
Yeah.
I realize now that I have to just kind of do a slow build and not always go for those massive numbers, because also I'm not as young. But it's been good to learn about different types of training, and in a way how similar different types, like they all are in a way. They just have a different way of expressing it,
Yeah. It actually brings up a good point about sustainability in training. It's like one of these concepts that I find really interesting, especially now where I don't know if it's different or if it's just my mindset has been different, but I'm so curious about lifters right now who have managed to keep training and keep their strength high despite a lot of the chaos that we're experiencing. But and at the same time, like, people are hitting all-time PRs sometimes in like really different conditions where they're not 24/7 lifting, like they're getting in what they can. Do you feel like
with less equipment too?
Yes.
I feel like I can focus more, because instead of all the frills and etc., everything around, I can just get in there and do my training and train hard. It's like with everything, I've got my perspective, if you know what I mean. A lot of the background noise is gone right now. So I've actually, while I don't like lockdown, it's been good not to be traveling all the time. It's been good not to be exhausted all the time. And I was addicted to that hustle. Always, I had to always be busy. My books had to be always full with people waiting to get in with me. And now I want to be like, I want time each day, because also my daughter, she's 10 now. Remember Abby? She's my height now.
What?
No.
No way.
Yeah, she's my height. I mean, that's not hard, but she's 10. And I found her this morning. She'd made a workout and she was secretly doing burpees. Can you believe it?
She's like, Mom, I'm doing something behind your back. It's called burpees. I don't know if you've heard of it.
How dare she do cardio behind my back? Yeah. So for me, lockdown's been good. I've found a lot of good in it anyway. I don't want it forever, because I'm starting to get quite bored, but
yeah, I feel like there's definitely an undulation with the isolation, feelings of isolation. Like I definitely have had a lot more anxious depression myself. We're not even in lockdown in this. Yeah. Yeah. Like, and we're not even in lockdown, like, but it sometimes feels like it in America. And, it's like, it's hard because it's hard to know who you can be comfortable around, like with more families, and people are politically divided. And like, normally that doesn't matter. Like, normally that had no impact on my life, like whatever. And now it's like, hey, you going to wear a mask around me? Do you wear a mask around other people? Are you vaccinated?
Yeah.
And I never have had to like go around in life wondering, hey, is this person a risk to my health by being in their near proximity?
It's crazy, isn't it? Like, it's like we were oblivious to, like, we were carefree and we didn't even realize it, And now
Yeah.
there's so much more. Like if I go, the other day it was Abigail's birthday and I went and did a click and collect. Do you have that in America? So you buy it online and then you go to the shop and pick it up.
Oh, okay. Yeah. We have like things like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I had to go click and collect a few of her birthday presents, and then I was a casual contact. So I had to isolate, get tested. And I was like, I can't even just go and pick up something from the shop. I'm at risk, It's crazy. But then, and you start judging your neighbor like they've got people at their house. They're not meant to have people,
Yeah, it's definitely a weird. Like I'm of the opinion that we as individuals shouldn't need to be so concerned. Like, it's not a fun environment to live in when you feel like the people who are supposed to protect that scenario don't. And now you got to be like, all right, I created a basement down here for myself. I made it all pretty. I got a guitar over here. I got a little plant earlier. You can see it. I got my first plant.
That's awesome. What kind of plant is that?
I don't know. I don't know. I went to Home Depot and I was like, this one is good. With I have a girlfriend now too, and so we've been trying to figure out ways to like enjoy it because she's kind of in a similar place.
Is she in Minnesota?
Yeah, luckily, finally,
oh, good.
A person. I know. Travel the whole world. Yeah, I'll travel the whole world, and I'm like, oh, maybe I'll find a girlfriend in this country, and knowing full well how horrible it would be because I'd like not be able to see them, and luckily now. But yeah, we've been trying to figure out ways to enjoy like what we have, which I actually have enjoyed. It's just been hard to get there because it feels a little bit like. I'm curious if you have ever felt this. Maybe this is a revelation, but when you first start lifting and you have this version of yourself that you remember, and maybe you didn't like that person, maybe you did, but I didn't love myself before lifting. And a lot of my behavioral change was like, I don't want to be, overweight. I don't want to be chubby anymore. Like I want to do these things so I can get strong and jacked and look good and da-da-da. And then you start to create this identity that's almost the antithesis of that other person.
Yeah.
And then it takes some time to realize that like, I'm not that person anymore, Yeah. And so when the pandemic happened, I was definitely a different person in that I was traveling all the time. I was seeing people. Most of my life and livelihood and enjoyment was coming from going places and seeing things and being in nature and meeting you and going to Australia and, doing seminars. And then, and then it just stopped. And I was like, okay, this will be fine.
Yeah.
This is just a little blip and it'll slow down. And that sucks. And so, there's periods of time where you're like, yeah, okay, well, the vaccine will come out soon. We'll be good. We'll be riding. I'll be back on, my shit. And then people are kind of hard to predict. So vaccines come out and people are like, nah, I'm good. And I'm like, what? Are you kidding?
This is the answer. Why won't you take the answer?
I'm like sitting there like, are you joking? This is real? Okay. So it's been hard to let go of the old version of me because, a lot of people don't want to let go of that. I would say those were kind of the happiest times I can remember. They're not like perfect. The past version of you is always seems like a happier time, but it's like I had to let go of that person and realize I'm a new person. And how it relates to the lifting version of me, it's like sometimes your behaviors are justified because you don't want to be who you were before. And then in this scenario, it's like, I wish I was that person. Can I be that person again? Or am I just going to be doing these things? How can I find, enjoyment in this new, I don't like saying this, but like this kind of new reality?
Yeah. I felt that when Australia got kicked out of but when I first started lifting, I was a massive party girl, as you know. So I didn't like that person at all. I was fun, but, it was not a good lifestyle. And then I discovered I was doing CrossFit then, and I discovered lifting, and I went, not only can you be a better person, but you can be the best at something. Like, something that totally blew my mind is I could actually be the best at something. And so that was what drove me for so many years. And then so I had become the best in 2016, and then it was the battle in 2017, and then I got silver that 2017, and then Australia got kicked out, and I had some like dark times mentally, just trying to let go of that. You can be the best because it's gone now. That door is shut. You know, Australia was kicked out. It was really frowned on to leave the Powerlifting Australia at that time and go to the new federation. So I was there for 3 years, and I did some good lifting, but you could really see me peter off because I'd lost my drive, and it was very hard. I was definitely became quite depressed at the thought that I would never be the best, or I'd never have a chance to try to be the best anymore. It was more about the trying, you know, in the end. But now I've been working on my business a lot more, and also I've joined the new federation, APU, and so I have an opportunity again, but it's also less important to me because I've become someone different. And now I'm at peace with that, you know, because I didn't die when I wasn't that person anymore. I, in fact, learned something about myself, and I moved on, and I'm able to help more people now because I focus on my coaching a lot more.
It seems like the realization of what your motivations. It's like you're motivated by one thing or maybe a few things at one point in your life, and those things are no longer even available to be motivated by.
Yeah.
And it sounds like there's, okay, what am I doing? Like, right? What's the thing that I'm going to spend my time on? And should I really let go of that motivation? Right?
Yeah. Because
does it feel, go ahead.
Carry on.
No.
All right. Yeah, well, it was actually once that motivation was gone, because it's painful trying to be the best. So you're spending, like, you're training at nighttime. Your family doesn't see you. Your body's in actual pain. Megan and I, we were doing those massive sessions, and we'd be talking to each other. By about hour 3, we would stop talking to each other, and we were just dragging ourselves around training, finishing it, and then, you know, recovering. Luckily, my body can handle a lot, so I was able to recover and keep going. But the third hour was horrible.
I feel like I've been really, like, generally so obsessed with this idea that we should be enjoying our training. Like not like you're not doing anything. Some people are like, oh, you're enjoying your training, like that's nothing. But like there's definitely that limit where you get to hour 3, like you said, and it's like, I'm just here because I'm supposed to be. You know what I mean? Like, and so I've been really interested in, you know, what is it that the lifter really does need so they can get stronger, and then just eliminate virtually everything else. And not like, hey, you don't need to do bodybuilding work, don't do it. But like, okay, what are your goals? What are your limitations? What equipment do you have? How many days, like, realistically are you able to train? And do you want to train? And then build everything around that.
Yes.
And I don't know, have you shifted that, like, focus a little bit? Like, and have you noticed a difference in how you feel?
Yes. I mean, my training is much less now. So I was doing all 3 lifts plus accessories 4 times a week, and back in the day. But now it's, say, I squat 3 times a week, deadlift twice, and I actually am enjoying my training a lot more. I think maybe because that whole thing of trying to be the best in the world has gone. I'm just I love lifting. I've gone back to that. That's why I'm training. And with my clients, like what you were saying, they tell me how many days they can train. And I used to be very much, you must do 5 sets of your accessories. Otherwise, they're not going to make a difference. You're not going to get stronger. So they wouldn't do them. So now I give them 3 sets and they do them. It's enjoyable and they actually get a little bit out of it instead of nothing, you know. So I've had to change that whole mindset, like where you need to be hurting to get better. I think you need to want to go to the gym and actually do the training to get better, you know.
And do you feel like your clients are responding better in this scenario?
Yes. So some I've gone to 2 days a week because that's all they could handle mentally. I mean, when they're working at home, training at home, they've got kids doing schooling at home, I totally understand that. And so what they've done is they've got their 2 days, and then I've noticed a lot of them are going back into their home gym and doing a 3rd day without me telling them. So for me, I'd rather that, you know?
Isn't that crazy though? Like you let go a little bit of the wheel and your clients are like, hey, actually, I feel good. I'm going to go train again.
Yeah. And they know my style of training. So they know like, okay, I'll do high bar pause squats or something to help me with this. And then they'll let me know and I'll say, yes, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
But I love that because we're here to teach them, right? Like we're their coach, but we shouldn't micromanage them either. That we should be teaching them how to learn to be strong. So if we're not there, they can continue.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's the thing with that's like what auto-regulation really is. You know, people think about it as like, oh, it's just adjusting the load. It's like, that's like one microcosm of auto-regulating your training, you know, like it's, hey, do you want to go train again? Do you feel good? Like, are you feeling bad? Do you want to be here? Like what exercises would be more preferable because you're in pain right now, you know, and we're all, I mean, at least I'm online. So it sounds like you have some online clients too. Like, I couldn't possibly be available for those types of micro decisions in a way that it would be even impactful. Because like, even if I was awake and they texted me and I was like, oh, hey, this is what you're feeling, I would literally need to get on a call with them and be like, where does it feel bad? Like, how intense does it feel when, you know, when you're feeling like it's not working? And so, like you said, it's like they're able to take the information that they learned from you and then use that and make a call based on what is probably going to be a decision, which to tangent this further is why I've been really like against this whole idea of like AI, quote unquote AI or algorithm based like coaching, because I don't want lifters to let go of the autonomy. You know, I don't want them to just sit there on their phone and be like, well, the app says I have to do this based on these inputs. It's like, why don't you just do the thing that you want to do because you're the one that's in control of your body? And that's not to say that algorithms are useless, but I think it's so valuable to have the autonomy in your training and learn about like those small things that you couldn't even input in a, you know, in an app right now, because one, the people who are making the apps don't have the understanding of how to get stronger, like widely, even, you know, let alone individually. And yeah, it's powerlifting. Like, how much research and development do we have into like optimizing powerlifting? Like, we don't, you know, so that's kind of the fact that you're showing this as lifters are taking control of it. You give them less and now they want to do more. Like, how crazy is it that on the program it says 5 sets? They're like, no. On the program, like, no, like 0. They're just going to do 0. It says 3 sets. Like, I can do that.
Yeah.
Why do you think that
I'll
is?
add some more. And it's because they feel like they can do it. And so like they're not overwhelmed. When you see that 5 sets, you feel that doom inside you, you know, like this is going to hurt. And unless you're one of those people that really enjoys pain, you're not going to even start, because if you only do 3 sets, you fail the prescription. If you do the 3 sets and then add another one, you've made your target and you've in fact given more to your coach, and that's a good feeling. Failing
into your training, right?
Sorry,
like you said, into your coach, but like also to like their like they made a decision right, to do more, and it felt good, or it didn't, but they get to learn from that versus on the other side, like you said, 5 is the requirement. If they don't do it, like no matter what, that's bad, at least psychologically it can feel like. And so, and if they do more than 5, that might be way too much. So it's like, if they're masochists, maybe that's the thing. But but it seems to be difficult to find that sweet spot sometimes. And one of the other benefits that I find in your scenario that I like is, instead of assuming they can get to that 5 sets in this case, hey, how do 2 sets feel? Like, what if you could do 2 sets and get stronger?
Yeah.
How's sick?
Exactly.
Less time in the gym, right?
Yeah. That's good. And because honestly, after 2 hours, you're bored, right? You want to go do something else. That was what you were saying about auto-regulation. I learned so much about myself as a lifter, and how something on my back or in my hands felt, and what that meant for how many more reps I could get, or like how the bar split. And also, it wasn't just that, it was the feeling of fatigue that would hit me straight after the lift. That's how I would gauge my RPE a lot. And that taught me so much. And for me, I don't like being told what to do so much. So RPE was so good for me, because I could choose my own adventure, based on my feeling. So that was really good for me.
That made me think of an ebook opportunity, like a choose your own adventure training plan.
Yeah. Oh my God, you should
do
that.
But it's like colored. It's like color coordinated and stuff. It's like like time to fight the dragon. It's like 5 sets of 10 on Bulgarian split squats. Yeah, what do you choose?
RPE 9.5.
Yeah. No, it's like so the other thing I've been really digging into, on top of what's the minimum effective dose or whatever, is like, what is actually motivating and what does it mean to be motivated? And this is something that's come up ever since I started working with RTS, and I got actually in a little bit of a psychological brawl with one of the coaches on the team, Paulie, where I was trying to describe to him that motivation isn't discipline. It's literally, motivation is just the reason why you do something. Yeah. And it doesn't on its own, it's hard for you to actually answer why you do something. And sometimes people like to ask, hey, why are you doing this? Why are you doing powerlifting? And the question itself might assume that there's just one answer to that. I do powerlifting because I want to challenge my body, or I do powerlifting because I want to get jacked,
Yeah. Or because you want to be the best. Or you want to win a competition. Yeah.
And that legitimately might be a good primary driver, but it's very unlikely that it's the only driver, because there are plenty of other things that you could do that would, fill that would hit that note. You could be the best at something. If you tried to find a bunch of different sports that you keep going, you might love just trying a bunch of sports and trying to find the best one that you do. So I found out about this theory called self-determination theory. And the whole concept of this theory is, why are we self-determined to do certain things? And the one of them is autonomy. So one of the big 3 pillars is autonomy. And that's, like you said, just not being told what to do, but feeling like the things that you're doing are your own choice, your own volition. But then, and that's usually the obvious one. I mean, it's not as obvious, but I find it obvious as a coach. You don't usually get good results with your clients when you're like, hey, I told you to do this thing. Why didn't you do that?
Yeah.
But the other 2 are really important, and that's relatedness, which, have you heard of this theory? I could be just talking to the choir.
No. Tell me.
Okay. Okay. So the other one is relatedness, and that's just a sense of belonging in, your community. So usually, luckily, powerlifting has some sense of community. And when you talked about when the IPF left, or PA left IPF, on some level, you are losing that sense of relatedness to the sport, because now you're on this island. I mean, literally on an island, training alone. And all these people, I remember you made a few Instagram posts that were like, hey, met all these friends and all these people, and I really looked forward to going to these competitions. And now what? I'm just training. To me, it feels almost like just, okay, now I'm just going to train in Minnesota. That's it. Like, I'm just going to train in my state. And so that's a huge driver for most people. Maybe on a small, right? Yeah. I mean, is that something that you felt?
Because, like, people have lost religion in a way. So they find new communities, and powerlifting is definitely one of those ones. And people have different ideologies, different, we all have fights like religion, but it's we all belong to the same broader unit, and we all feel almost, that's why we call it our powerlifting family. Like, you and I would never have met if it wasn't for powerlifting,
Yeah, it's like this, and it's a sensation. I mean, and just to take this on my side, like, I've been feeling a lot of like loss in that relatedness piece, because there's a lot of people in powerlifting that I've been just surprised by recently, the last year and a half. I'm just like, wait, this person that I knew is like contributing to the chaos that's happening right now.
I can't believe it. I honestly, I don't even want to look at Facebook, because I'm losing respect for so many people, and people probably are losing it for me from me putting out my views. So I've just, so I don't want to. It's you know what I mean? Or what do you think is better, finding out or not finding out?
I don't know. I mean, I thought finding out was the solution, because then I could find people that I actually had to call my sister this morning about this, because I literally have been.
Is this Liz?
Yeah, Liz. Yeah, my sister Liz. Yeah. I literally called her and I said, how, like, I was, one of the things I was worried about was that she, living in another country, she lives in Ireland, was feeling kind of sad, or as isolated as I have been feeling, even though we don't even have a lockdown here. It's crazy.
It feels like you're locked in though.
Yeah. It's like, I mean, I am locked into my basement. Like, I can leave at any point. But the thing is, it's like, people have had depression and isolation feelings in all times in history, despite that there's not been like a lockdown. So what causes the isolation itself? It's this lack of relatedness. Like, do you belong in the world, let alone within powerlifting? And so when people feel really isolated, it's like, I don't even know who I can connect with. And so instead of thinking, so I called her and she was like, hey, I'm feeling great. I'm like, what, really? You're feeling great? She's like, yeah, I'm happier than I've ever been in a long time, at least. I'm like, really?
You're like, thanks for not relating with
Yeah. I can't believe you. Yeah. No, but I said, why? Like, well, why do you feel that way? And she's like, well, I realized that, luckily Ireland is a little bit less polarizing than here. And so, like, a lot of people her age are vaccinated. And so she obviously has similar anxieties that I do about hanging around unvaccinated people and just like getting sick in general. Like, I don't want to get sick. I just don't want to have a flu. If I was gone for 2 weeks, like, that would really impact my business. And my clients luckily be understanding, but like 2 weeks of backlogged work, I don't want to deal with that.
And also, imagine if you're the one that ends up in hospital,
Yes, right. Exactly. Right. Like, I feel justified in that position. So anyway, she was like, well, I've been downloading this, it's like dating apps for friends, like Bumble, Bumble BFF or something. So she's like, I downloaded Bumble BFF and I put
That's so good.
For friends, because she has a boyfriend. That's why she's in Ireland. But like, you can only, spend so much time with one person, whether you love them or not. Like, you need to have the community itself is helpful. So she's been reaching out to finding friends, and she's been doing things with people that she does trust and that she feels comfortable around. She's been going to softball games and like going outside and going on like long bike rides around Ireland and like just doing all the things that she can do and focusing her efforts on that. And I thought, like, something flipped in my head. I'm like, I think I can do that too. Because up until that point, I was very much like, how long do I got to wait until the entire world, or we reach herd immunity or something? Like, not even that because I was convinced that was justified. But at the same time, like, of course there are people I can hang out with though.
Yeah.
You know, like of course there are people who do have similar beliefs, and at least, you know, not all the same ones, but enough of the core beliefs I think are important when you're creating a friend group or whatever. And so I haven't exactly made a bunch of friends, but I have been focusing my effort on finding people who I can get along with and like really cherishing them versus letting the negativity of talking with someone that, or like, you know, having a debate online or something with someone that I'm like, wait, you don't agree with me? That's really frustrating. I can't believe it. And then you just cycle and spiral into this, like, what in the world? Whereas I could have spent my energy on speaking with you, for example. It's like, how sick.
Exactly.
And so like, and on top of that, I try to justify my behaviors in ways that mean I'm doing good. Like I'm doing a good thing. So is arguing with someone online, even if it's respectfully, because I usually am quite respectful, at least I try to be, but internally I'm like burning a hole in myself, you know? But
at least
like,
you know Arnie's on your side.
Yeah, Arnie and I were tight. Yeah, he knows. He saw my video. But
I love Arnie.
Yeah, he's sick right now. Not like sick, like he's cool. So okay, so I've been trying to do some research on like how do you change people's minds, and specifically how do you change the minds of conservative people? And I learned that it's really difficult, like, to do this, because when you're having a debate online, i.e. in public, it might feel like it's private, but it's not. There's a strategy, a debate strategy that people, especially over here on the right, that they take that is speaking not to the individual, but to the audience listening. And so instead of arguing, like usually what they do is instead of arguing the logic or arguing the debate at hand, they're utilizing behavioral debate strategies, or kind of like what it would be body language if you saw them in person, but it's just the intonation in which they're using the words. You know, so if someone says, the sky is blue, or the sky is not blue, and you're like, yes, it is. The sky is 100% blue. It's blue because the light spectrum is red, green, orange, purple, blue, and the ocean is blue, and so the light reflects off the ocean, and now the sky is blue. And the person's like, yeah, no, it's not. And then you're like, yes, it is. And then here's another like chunk of words to tell you why that's true. That person's gonna look like they're more right because they're not defending themselves. So they take a strategy of no defense. They're just attacking. Yeah. And what I tend to do, and a lot of people that I know, is they defend. And when you're always on defense, it can look like, it can be perceived that you're not correct, especially by people who are on the side of the more conservative perspective. It's just kind of how we're wired, from what I understand. And so I was like, well, then what do I do? I Googled it. I was watching a bunch of videos, and it's like, the best thing you can do in a scenario where someone's like not interested in debating logic is to delete the comment, disregard that person and their perspective. Basically, don't give them a platform. Yeah. And don't reference their argument when trying to convince someone else. So basically, if you have a position that you believe in, instead of saying this person's wrong and here's why, just say the thing that you believe and then try to use the information that you have. And that's it, just period. Like, the sky is blue. The reason we know it is blue because I fucking am a scientist or something, or like the sky is blue because I know how light works and provide evidence. But don't give the argument, the person that's arguing with you, a platform to gain followers, because effectively that's what the argument is. And it's a time-intensive experience.
From what you're saying, so that they're diluting your message and they're distracting you from your own message, because then it's now a battle. Yeah, I get in that all the time, don't worry, because we're emotional people. So somebody says something, I feel like I have to. I put up a post the other day, and it was, a reaction to a post where a girl said, if you don't want guys to look at you, wear baggy clothing and put your head down.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
Yeah.
I saw
and
that.
And I was angry, and I was like, I'm going to be, if anyone tells me, like, how dare they, basically. And I said, I will be alpha as fuck, and etc. And some guy writes, anybody that says they're alpha obviously is not alpha, but I agree with the rest. I'm like, why would you focus on that? It was just making a statement.
It pissed you off?
Yeah. Well, yeah, people will always do that. They'll just find something small to take away from your message, like distract everyone from your message and make that the argument, you know?
Yeah, it's actually like, I'll send you a YouTube video after this, but it's like a tried and true debate strategy that is actually like somewhat unethical, but really effective.
It is.
And so I'm like, I'm always sitting there like, am I crazy? Like, cause that's the thing. You start like going down the rabbit hole of deflective arguments where now you're trying to defend what alpha is, right?
Yes.
It's like, what the fuck? This isn't what I
the point of my message.
yeah. And so, okay, so we're going back to like relatedness, right? That concept though has been so apparent in powerlifting, like for the last 7, 8, 9 months. And then Abby, my girlfriend, is like, hey, what if we like didn't talk about that stuff for a little bit? You know, like what if we like went on a walk and enjoyed it? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, that'd be good, right? And it was like in the middle of me like ranting. And I was like, no, that would actually be sick because I really want to enjoy my walks. I really want to enjoy the good things that I got going on. And there's people that I don't even know, or maybe I do, but they don't live near me. They're not even my friends. And I'm like putting my energy towards them. And I have friends and there are good people. And what if I try actively to minimize my interactions with people that are like that, you know, and more with people that I enjoy? And some people are like, oh, well, you're just creating a bubble for yourself. And it's like, I'm not though. Like,
so people that's deflection. They're deflecting.
Yes. Like, exactly. And it's kind of like being in an abusive relationship, but with like a community, you know? And so you don't know that you're in it until you're in it. Like you think you're welcome, but then you're like in a pond and you're like deep into the pond and you're like looking up and you're like, what's it like up there? Yeah, I don't know. I'm down here, you know? And then you swim up and you're like, this is way better, you know? And
the thing with that is, you know, with that post of mine, I had so many comments that were good, but what's the one that I remember? That one. And you'll always just remember that one negative interaction or that fight you have, even though you do have so many people that agree with you. I find maybe the far right are much more vocal, you know.
Well, they're just
that's why you're seeing it all the time.
They're like more offensive, you know. They like are emotion. They like attack the emotion so hard that you're like you know, you're triggered. Like you're triggered. Like, how dare you? You know what I mean? Like, I can't believe you would say that. And then it makes you look like, I don't know what it makes you look like. I mean, and the thing I told my parents, because they're like, why do you spend so much time in your comments? And I said, well, because I don't want someone to think that this person is right on my comments, because they're not. Yeah. And I thought debating was the answer, but I'm realizing, like, I'll just delete it. You know, like in the future, I'll just delete it. Like, I don't need to block the person, but your comment is so irrelevant and just deflective that I don't need, this isn't my point on my page. It's not discourse with people who disagree with me. Like I you know what I mean? So that's been the strategy. And I've been on average much happier recently. Because now I have more energy for people. They're
pulling you down into that deep pool. You know, they're the ones holding you down. You're going to drown in all those negative comments otherwise. But it's deleting is better. I've learnt that the hard way. I was fighting with everybody on the internet all the time. And and you've got more time to be mindful, enjoy that walk with your girlfriend, you know.
Hey, my girlfriend's name is Abby too.
Yeah, best
My girlfriend's
name.
name is Abby and my sister's name is Liz.
It's great.
We're like paired up.
You need a Leon in your life. Can you get a dog called Leon?
I actually don't know. Like, I don't even know if that's a name in America. Like, I mean, obviously it probably is, but like very uncommon. Maybe I'll ask Abby if she knows a Leon.
Yeah, it's more French, I think, and a lot of the Asian students come over there, Leon. So everyone thought that I had an Asian student boyfriend.
Oh, really?
His name was Leon, and he was into computers.
Okay, so I want to get back to why this is all important. Why are we talking about like alt-right, debate strategies? Well, unfortunately, that's a thing in the lifting community, and sometimes you got to deal with those people. And it can feel like you're losing that connection with the community, and that is really demotivating. Like really, I think. And so focusing on people that you can relate to, like I joined a powerlifting gym here in St. Paul and was so pumped about it. And it was pretty good. It's still good. Like they're all good people. Like even the people that I left because they didn't get vaccinated are still good people. But I like couldn't be there because it was really hard for me to like support the company knowing one of the owners wasn't vaccinated.
Yeah.
And I told him like, hey, this Delta variant, it's on the rise. Like I live with my parents. Like I just don't want to be in a situation where I'm even getting sick, and I talk to him all the time. So I was kind of getting weird, like being near him for too long. So I'm like, you're not vaccinated, bro. And I just don't want to get sick. Right. And so I just said, I don't want to be here anymore. And then I'm like, all right, well, how good will that be? I can train in my home gym more. I'll be able to use my camera more effectively. I can stream on Twitch again. But still, it's now I've isolated myself further from even like a local community because of this like boundary that I kind of have. And I could go to the gym and train and just hang out with like Abby and just get out and not talk to the owners, but I'm too social. Like I'm so social. I want to talk to people. I don't want to have to decide and ask, hey, wait 1 second. Have you been fucking vaccinated?
Yeah.
So even though that's the thing, just enjoying the people that I know I can trust and feel comfortable around has helped a lot with relatedness. And then that brings to the third reason or way to be motivated. And it's, it's relatedness. I always think about it and then I get deep into relatedness. Autonomy, relatedness, and I need to Google it because I'm just going to get stuck on it for way too long.
Google
self-determination theory is like my favorite, like probably the most Googled thing.
Sounds very interesting.
Yeah, I'll send you some links on it. Competence is the third one, or it's the second one really.
Yeah.
But competence. So you're talking about earlier the desire to be the best in the world, right? That's like competence at the peak. Is like not only are you the best for you or like you're improving, but like you're beating everyone else. And so comparative competence is really high in that scenario. And so if you combine the three, autonomy, you're doing it because you want to do it. You feel like the people that you're doing it with are enjoying your presence and you're enjoying their presence. So that's like connection with the people at the meet. And then competency. So the fact that you're good at the thing that you're putting all your time, energy, and money into is really valuable and motivating. And even if you're not competent, the desire or the belief that you will be competent is so exciting and motivating. And that's why powerlifting is my hypothesis actually. My hypothesis with powerlifting is that because we literally get a direct, relative direct, and very recent understanding of how good we are getting, it's very addicting. Next week you could be stronger, right?
Progress is addictive, and that's motivating. Progress. When you're lifting and you nail a lift and you can tell that you did everything exactly right, you were competent, that feels good. Like when you start lifting and it's all over the place, it feels terrible, the idea that it's like with the guitar. You start playing, you sound like shit, and then you keep playing, you're like, it's starting to sound better, and that motivates you to keep going, doesn't it?
Well, and then there's actually like
and it's more enjoyable.
Yes, but there's actually a kind of a phenomena that happens with a lot of people where they get addicted to the beginner gains. Like that feeling of competency is exponential when you go from not being able to do something to do it kind of. I can kind of play guitar, right? That feeling takes effort, but it's a lot less effort than from going from I can play the guitar to I can play consistently in a band, and like go on a show and go make money. So with lifting, it's like actually where you're at right now with lifting is kind of in a place that's interesting because you don't know how much more progress that you have.
Yeah. And I'm
you definitely
older.
know how, you're older, right? But you're also aware of how much progress you've already made. And probably you remember the feeling of like, what's the first time where you hit a weight when you're like, holy shit, I can't believe I did that.
Well, 120 was something that I never thought I'd be able to hit in the squat. And when I finally got that, I thought I was queen of the world. Yeah. It was ugly though. I look back to it now. I'm like, fuck, that was ugly.
Damn. Yeah.
Yeah. My technique's a lot better than it used to be. But
so once that happened, was it like, okay, so you've squatted more than 120. What's your best squat? 147? 152?
160.
160. Holy shit. Okay. So you added 40 kilos after you got to the point of, I can't believe I did that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It was like once I hit that though, I can't believe I did that. Then I was like, well, let's see what else I can get. I had hit something that I thought was completely unattainable. So after that, the sky was the limit. And I still think I have more in my squat because my technique is getting better. I've gotten to the point where I couldn't probably do more volume, but I could fix my technique and I could rest better and I could definitely eat better and I could drink less wine. Mm-hmm. So that'd be good.
So
that's the problem with lockdown is the wine.
Do you feel like it helped? Has it helped? Have you reduced your intake of wine?
So this lockdown, I've reduced. I'm drinking less. It's the boredom, not having anything to do on the weekends. So you feel, well, I'll make a party out of doing the dishes and have a glass of wine. Yeah. But there's a maybe competition in December, so I'm just focusing on that now. So definitely there'll be no wine.
Yeah, well, I mean, the thing you said is like you can improve your technique. So first, I don't know if this is a common thought process, but I think a lot of beginner lifters think that they're the only ones that worry about their technique. And I've also, this is another like thing that I've been like, this isn't true, because if you look at like the majority, and I would say majority because, I'm thinking about like people who are actively competing right now, what are they paying attention to? Like, and some of them might be focusing on like doing more volume. Some of them might just be brute work, but like, I don't know. It does seem like there's a good handful of people who are trying to optimize their technique despite the fact that they're at the top. Like, do you feel like that's common or just, do you just do that?
I just feel like every time you have a deload, I feel untrained the following week after I've peaked. So I need to go back to basics and relearn. I'm not a naturally coordinated person. So I have notes that I've written about what being back at the basics needs to look like, or what I need to focus on to start building that strong foundation for my next peak again. I think everybody should write little cues that have made a difference for them at the start of each program. They should have their notes down and look at that and remind themselves, because for me, once I get to a peak and I'm going for a max lift, I have no thoughts. All I can feel is rhythm and balance. Rhythm, balance, and the pressure. Like it's all very like instinctual by that stage. And that's how it should be if you want it to look nice or feel nice.
That's actually interesting because that thing you just said, like oh, well, when I'm peaking, I'm just thinking about these things. Like there's a few things in your mind. It's kind of like focus more or less, right?
Yeah.
And I think some people hear that and they think, oh, top level lifters just think about being in the zone.
Yeah.
Right. And so what you're saying is, if I'm understanding it, that's when you're feeling like like once you're in the zone, you're in the zone. But before that, after a deload, it's like, wait, how did this feel good again?
Why is something 40 kilos less than my max feeling like such crap right now, you know? Like feels heavy.
Is this my max? Yeah.
Yeah.
Does I get
so
weak
I have
forever?
to go back. Yeah, it's hard though. Yeah, do you actually think, will I ever be strong again? But you go back and the momentum starts building again, you know?
Yeah. I mean, it's like it's one of these things with like an emerging approach or a bottom up approach, because, you know, there's plenty of ways to implement bottom up training. And that's kind of something that I've realized is that there's no real need for a strict structure with your training. It's only useful for people that find planning more valuable than reacting, I guess.
Yeah.
And so there's a use for planning in that you can kind of have an outline to work with. But like, so for example, I'm going to talk about a lifter. I'm not going to use their name because I haven't asked them yet. But this week, I was working a lifter, and their time to peak looks like it's been around every 4 weeks. Like every fourth exposure, we're like, yeah, let's pivot. I mean, we're still learning that, because some lifters, you know, you have a bad week because, I don't know, like lockdown lifting is so important to pay attention to the lifter, because you really don't know why you're getting, like, if you have a bad week, you might not know why. You might be like, oh, it's time to peak. I'm peaked, right? It could be also that, hey, I'm depressed right now. Like training ain't going well because I don't even want to be in the gym.
Yeah.
And that can kind of make it difficult. Like if you're like, well, then your time to peak is now 4 weeks and that doesn't compute. And so therefore we need to, like, we have to pivot right now. Like, and that's not the case. Like it kind of defeats the purpose of a bottom up approach if you're strict on the initial plan, right? So anyway, lifters, normal time to peak is 4 weeks. I communicate with them that way. Hey, we're pivot is the plan, right? But let me know what I said was, let me know what you're thinking about that though, because if you're feeling good and you want to hit a PR, you feeling like you want to keep going, let's keep going. Yeah. And what they said was, yeah, actually I want to keep going because I have these numbers I want to hit, and I've been actually excited to hit them, and I think I can hit them. And
that's the motivation thing again, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Going back to that competency, baby.
Yeah.
Because it's very distracting to get to the point. It's like demotivating to get cut off from that progress too soon. Yeah. You know, especially if it's like you said, going back to autonomy, especially if in your mind you want to hit a PR and then your coach is like, nope, it's pivot time. Sorry.
Yeah.
You know? And so like long story short is they hit what they wanted. It was like a lifetime PR on the bench. I think they're going to hit a PR on squat, and we're working on their deadlift technique. So this person might know who they are, but I didn't ask, so I'm not putting them on blast right now. But it was cool because I was like, oh, okay, let's go 5 weeks. Let's see how it goes. And like, yeah, that was very motivating for them. And so I wonder if you've had like, you know, have you had like a lot of weird changes in your training other than just like reduction in volume and focus on technique? Has there been anything else that has helped you?
So I've been working with Kedrick. Do you know Kedrick? Mm-hmm. At the moment? So I was meant to have a similar thing happen. I was meant to have a deload, but everything was going through the roof. So he made me do an RPE 9-day, and I hit a 426 total, which was good. Like the deadlift was too heavy. That was more RPE 10. But the other lifts flew, and I hit a lifetime bench PB or PR, which was amazing. I haven't hit one in 4 years, so I'm so happy. And I'm trying a new technique, so that's been really good.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. So This is another N=1 study where I ask about, hey, are you training less? Are you hitting PRs? It sounds like at least the bench has responded well to that.
Yeah. So I'm training less in a way. The difference in my program now is I'm doing more sets at the top. Remember, instead of a top set with drops, I'm doing more just the same. Mm-hmm. And I guess building a foundation. And then by the 5th week, I kind of went for it this time. But usually it's the same kind of thing, 4 weeks deload, 4 weeks. But then if I'm feeling good, he gives me the autonomy, like, yeah, let's go for it. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Which I like. And, you know, because I've been around for a while, like last week, I had a certain amount of sets of deadlifts and I was like, these are flying. So I'm doing an extra set and I'm adding some weight to it. And then I tell him afterwards. But, you know, with one of my clients last week, they were meant to deload and his lifts have been going really well through lockdown. So I let him, and he hit 3 lifetime PBs, which was good. It's very happy. And that was for triples as well.
I wonder if people are just realizing how much autonomy they truly have in their training now that there's less, like, I don't know, it feels there's less hype around training, like in terms of, I mean, there's hardly even competition for people right now. Yeah. You know, it's hard to get motivated if competition is the only thing. Do you find that you're like, so you don't have a competition, maybe it's in December, but how do you find the lack of competition? I mean, so I want to talk about the elephant in the room, I guess. You talked about leaving PA and you're in the APU. Did the APU explode or the PA explosion impact your training at all? Like when that happened?
I mean, I was with the recent stuff. Oh yeah. So, I mean, I was horrified with that. Obviously, I'm not going to say anything because that's all legal stuff right now, but I did not think that was how PA was going to implode. That took me by surprise. But, you know, it's opened up some really good conversations for females in the sport, which has been a plus. Mm-hmm. I did not think PA would last that much longer. I thought it would be a slow death. You know, maybe the next couple of years, especially with COVID. APU, a lot of people have gone over to, so everyone was waiting for an out, basically, and this was a very good reason to leave PA. Mm-hmm. And so that now a lot of people have just gone over for sooner than they thought they would. So for me, that didn't affect my training. In fact, I feel a little bit more motivated that my community is going to be more together now. And I'm happy about that because Australia was too small a community to be divided, like our drug-tested community, too small to be 2 federations.
Yeah, right. Because, I mean, there's like a divide there, like non-tested and tested. But then from that, it's a pretty, like, the pool isn't that big. Yeah. I don't know how big it is, but it doesn't seem that big.
No, it's not that big. We've got some strong lifters, but, you know, it was just getting to a good spot where we were having, say, 500 lifters at our nationals.
You had 500 lifters at your nationals?
We were, and then the big divide happened. APU versus PA versus IPF.
Yeah, so you found a place. So now you're in a position where training is like almost a little bit more motivating because you have. I don't mean to always be like, oh well, that's relatedness, but I think it's nice to think about it. It's like you have people now that are, you know, going to be in one place, and you know, on top of that, the IPF and the USAPL are like, yeah, let's just not get along. And I know that there's different.
I just joined the IPF again. Come on, guys.
Yeah. Like what the hell? And I think that's been one of the other things that's been really frustrating as a coach is like one of my favorite things is the international competition. And luckily I'm not actually a judge for either, or I'm not even an official coach in the USAPL or anything. So I could go to any competition if I want to, it wouldn't matter. But there are still people that are in the US that love international competition. And there were arguments like, well, there's no competition anyway other than the USAPL, so it doesn't matter. And it's like, one, that's not true, because USA doesn't sweep, the federations. They don't sweep the competition. And two, like, USAPL lifters don't have all the world records, period. So that seems like a weird position to take, right? And lifters, like, in general, like meeting new lifters. Like, I don't know how many people are lifting and they're just like, I just want to be the best and I don't care about anyone else but myself. Like, it's good to be the best when you get to compete against people around the world. How much more fun is that?
Yeah. So, it's like going to camp every year.
Yeah. But it's in Sweden and you're like, what's up? I'm from Australia or whatever.
So good.
I'm from America. I always have to go, whenever I travel, I'm like, you don't talk to people and you tell them that you're from the US and they're like, ugh. And then I'm like, no, but don't worry, like I didn't like vote for Trump. And they're like, oh, sweet, what's up? And they like welcome you into the restaurant. It's like signs are like, no Trump supporters. I'm like, okay, cool, what's up?
I had to warn Abby when we went to America recently because she hated Donald Trump. I'm like, don't tell the cab drivers, don't mention it. Just keep it to yourself. Not recently, this is 2019. But
it's like, even then, it's that's part of the kind of relatedness aspect that is, hopefully we can rebuild it, and hopefully travel is a thing that exists in the next few years so we can see. I want to go to Australia again in particular. Like, that's one of the places where I felt most welcomed in the lifting community, like in particular. Like when I went there, obviously you and I went out to dinner. Billy and JP, super cool. Isabella met Alex, and like now they're freaking living together. Like, like I have like only positive experiences from my trip there. And like, maybe it's because I was only there for a little bit. Okay, that's partially true. I also had to go home because my tonsils, I kept getting tonsillitis, and I had to fly home.
Oh no.
To like get them removed. Like, it was like, I was so pumped because I stayed there a little bit after the seminar for like a month and a half. And 4 of those like 5 weeks, I was like sick because I had to go to the Australian hospital to get antibiotics to get my swelling in my neck to go down because I couldn't swallow. Oh, it's just a pain. Terrible. But the positives are what I usually remember because, like powerlifting is sick there, and the people I met were sick. Yeah, like super, super cruisy. And and then when I was in Sydney, Dennis and Christine, like we went to the zoo, and like there's just so many good people. So if you guys are listening to this, I hope I can come back.
Come to Canberra. It's the capital. They call us the asshole of New South Wales.
If I am able to go there, I'm going to try to bring Abby and let her see the world with me, because she's just hears all these stories of me, and I'm like, I was here and I was here, and she's like, I haven't even been in New York City, and I'm like, okay, well, we'll start there.
Yeah. And then, does Abby lift?
Yeah, Abby lifts. She's
awesome.
She lifts like really well. She when I met her, she was like, her whole vision of lifting was just like grinding herself, just like she would fail a bench set and then she just keep going, and she still does this. And she got mad at me at one point because I'm like, why do you keep doing that? She's like, because I want to. And I'm like, okay, fine, but you do better. I was like, well, you do better. Yeah. Autonomy, Jim. You wouldn't get it. And I was like, well, wouldn't you be doing it better if you didn't do that? And she's like, don't tell me what to do. And I'm like, fair enough,
Yeah.
And I backed off. But yeah, she lifts, and she is really pumped about getting stronger. Like, she hit a bench PR a while ago. Like I think she's benched like 110 or something, 115. And
kilos?
No, pounds.
Oh, okay. Wow, that's like, not fair.
Yeah. She hit a PR. She hit a world record at 57 kilos. Yeah, she's pretty strong, I guess. No, but I think she really enjoys lifting, and we've been streaming on Twitch as well, which is
I
one of
don't even
the
know what Twitch is.
Twitch is basically just a place where you can stream anything. You can stream gaming, you could stream yourself just talking. Like, I could stream this podcast on there if I wanted to. If we wanted to. It's actually where we're going to have the ZAO Strength online meet. So one of the things that like I felt was important is that there's a lot of lifters that don't have competitions. So one of the things that I'm doing this on October 2nd is that we're going to have an online meet streamed on Twitch. Now, obviously, it'd be cooler if it was a live meet, but what I'm going to do is everyone's being categorized into different, lifting categories based on their weights. And they just gotta like download an app where they can take a picture of their weigh-in, weights with a timestamp, so I know when it was done. And then they record all of their lifts with that app too, so I know that they didn't, just take a random lift from 5 years ago and they're like, I hit a PR, thank you. Yeah. Also, that would be weird. Like, it's not that serious. Like, I didn't actually compete.
I'm going to quickly enter and then I'll send my ones from the Arnold, all right?
Yeah. Like, I mean, if you wanted to do it, if you had a mock meet, you wanted to do it and you wanted to test your maxes at the end of the week, you can do it. And I was trying to promote it more to Australia because of all the people's nationals who weren't available. But, yeah, I don't know. I just feel like even if you can't compete, maybe you can test your maxes and you can be a part of something. And we're going to do a donation as well. So the whole stream will be like a whole day. And the whole day we're going to do donations to, we're going to do 50% of the donations are going to go to the Clean Air Foundation, which is like a kind of research and development charity where it's like 90% of the investment goes directly to the research and development. So that's one of the things that with donations where you got to double check that's not like 5% of your money actually goes to the cause. And then the other one is the National Abortion Foundation to basically provide clean, safe, effective, like not even just abortions, but what is the word for that? Contraceptive measures for men and women around the US, especially because of what's going on in Texas. Yeah, and man. Like there's all these things that I feel kind of helpless in. And so I felt like, well, maybe the powerlifting community can show off, a mutual interest in something, and we can donate to help the climate and, minimize the potential issues that are going on in the US at least. So that's a thing that I'm also adding.
You got to send me the links to that. I'll put it up.
If you want to do that, I'll shoot you it over after the podcast. But okay, so I want to kind of wrap it up on top of this. But Liz, like one of the things that I really like about you as a lifter is that you've just been in the industry for such a long time. You've been so proactive and kind of even vocal about what you care about. And you're also never, but you're also never like afraid to learn more. And I think that's like what's so cool is like as lifters, sometimes you get to a level and it feels like, oh, this person's already good. They're done learning. Like they're just teaching. Like, what do you think about that concept and like within the lifting community?
I mean, if I thought I couldn't learn anymore, I wouldn't do it anymore. That's motivating to me. The idea that I can make something better, and so I can become a better coach. I can always learn more. I can become better at my business. I can become better as a lifter. And I know we have so many muscles in our body. There's so much many mindset problems we have with lifting as well, because a lot of it's confidence there and recovery issues. I just don't think it's even possible to leave no stone unturned. So I'm always trying to find another stone that I can unturn, and that gives me hope. So I'll probably, while I think I can still learn more and get better, I'll never stop lifting and I'll never stop coaching, because that's my motivation.
Yeah, because I feel like that's the next level. It's like you can now even teach other people the things that you've learned and like learn how to teach people better too, right?
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm trying to do now, is start to be able to take the information I've learned over the last decade and try to teach new people how to learn from my mistakes and my triumphs, you know. Some of the most important things, like not thinking every time I went for my third squat, I never make my third squats. Once I stopped thinking that, I stopped failing my third squat, you know, things like that.
So if you were to tell someone that's been training for like 6 months, you know, they know that they like powerlifting, and they, you know, they want to compete, but they're kind of nervous. Like, what would you tell them? What would you tell that person, you know?
I would say if they want to be a powerlifter that competes, get in and do your competition as soon as possible, because every competition, it's just a lesson. You're just learning. It's not your worth. It doesn't decide who you are as a lifter. It tells you what you need to get better at. And write down those notes for your next competition. I need better nutrition. I need to make sure I'm not distracted. I need to make sure I've got a hotel room with a bath in it so I can have my Epsom salt bath, you know, things like that. But I always know if I'm going overseas or to another place, I need to make sure of those things. And like have your playlist downloaded in case you don't have good Wi-Fi coverage, things like that. You know?
Some backup plans, you know, gotta get the tunes in. If you don't have anything but you have some music, you'll probably lift okay.
Yeah, exactly. And if that's not going to work, then practice in the gym without music. Because if that's what you're concerned with, performing well on meet day, then practice that.
If anyone wants to learn more from Liz, where can they find you?
So I'm Liz Powerlifts on Instagram. That's probably about it. I mean,
what's your business called? Can they find you, or is that local?
Yes, House of Reps in Canberra.
House of Reps.
House of Reps gym. And so also my email is just lizpowerlifts@gmail.com, but don't send anything sus, all right?